it's definitely really special. Honestly, I look up to her a lot. I think the way that she conducts herself, I hope that's the right word, conduct. I think it's really special, and I feel like to be such an amazing role model at such a young age is a gift.
Naomi Osaka breaks down in tears. Buckle up, because today's story is one of those rare sports moments that hits you right in the chest before you even know why. We are talking about tears, legacy, motherhood, comebacks, and two of the most talked about women in tennis colliding in a moment so raw that even the commentators didn't know what to say. Naomi Osaka, Coco Gauff. Two names that have been tangled up in each other's stories since Coco was literally a 15-year-old kid with braces and a dream, and Naomi was the reigning U.S. Open champion who could have crushed her spirit but chose, instead, to lift her up.
Like, obviously, the French Open, 2020, what year is it? I don't know. The pink French Open look that I had that I played, when I played Badosa, that was kind of the one where I was like,
Fast forward to now, and the tables have turned in a way nobody saw coming, and Naomi Osaka is once again standing on that same court, tears streaming down her face, talking about Coco Gauff. But this time, the story is so much bigger, so much messier, and so much more emotional than anyone expected.
This is something that I can't really speak for everybody. I can only speak for myself, but ever since I was younger, I've had a lot of media interest on me.
Stick around, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly why this moment is being called one of the most human scenes in modern tennis history. Let's rewind for a second, because to understand why grown adults were crying on national television over a tennis match, you have to go back to where this whole saga started. It's 2019. Arthur Ashe Stadium, a packed house of over 20,000 fans. Naomi Osaka is the reigning U.S. Open champion, the world #1, a rising global superstar who had just dethroned named Coco Gauff, who had already taken the tennis world by storm at Wimbledon just months earlier. This was billed as the match of the future, the reigning queen against the princess who everyone said was going to take her throne one day. And when the dust settled, Osaka demolished her, 6-3, 6-love, in just over an hour. Brutal on paper. But here's the thing that nobody expected. What happened after the final point is what actually made history. Coco Gauff walked to the net, tears already welling up, trying so hard to hold it together in front of thousands of strangers and a national television audience. And Naomi Osaka, instead of doing the standard handshake and walk-off routine, stopped. She saw this kid, a kid she recognized, because get this, their families had crossed paths for years on the junior circuit, their dads were even friendly with each other, and she saw herself in her. Osaka pulled Gauff aside and told her, essentially, that there's no shame in crying, that it's better than crying alone in the shower. She convinced her to stay on the court.
Hello, Naomi. Hopefully it's okay if I ask a couple of tennis questions. The first one is just how the training has been and how your preparation has been for the summer hard court swing. And the second one is
traditionally reserved only for the winner. Osaka stood there, fighting back her own tears, and told Gauff's parents that they had raised an incredible player, that she remembered watching them train together years, both crying, both hugging, both showing more humanity in 5 minutes than most rivalries show in a decade. That moment defined both of their careers going forward, whether they wanted it to or not. It became the origin story of one of the most respectful rivalries in modern sports. Now here's where the story gets complicated, because life did not go easy on either of these women after that. Naomi Osaka, despite being on top of the tennis world, was quietly struggling in ways nobody could see. Within months of that emotional U.S. Open, she was opening up about not feeling truly happy even when she won. She admitted, in interviews that left fans stunned, that victories started to feel more like relief than joy, and that losses hit her disproportionately hard. She started skipping press conferences, citing her mental health, which set off a massive controversy across the sports world, a controversy that, in hindsight, actually helped push the entire conversation about athlete mental health into the mainstream. She withdrew from the French Open. She skipped Wimbledon.
Your next opponent is Coco, and you played her here 6 6 years ago at this point. I'm sort of curious what your recollections are of that match.
I remember just knowing that she was going to be a really great tennis player, which I was right.
She broke down in tears in a press conference in Cincinnati after a question from a reporter hit a little too close to home. This was a superstar at the absolute peak of her fame, quietly falling apart in front of the entire world, and somehow still showing up, still swinging a racket, still trying to find her joy again. And here's the layer that makes this whole story even more powerful. This wasn't Osaka gloating over a rival's downfall. This was mutual respect on full display, the same way it was back in 2019, just flipped. Because on the other side of the net, Coco Gauff, now a Grand Slam champion in her own right, now the player expected to dominate, was devastated. She admitted afterward that she basically broke down in front of her own team after the loss, that the disappointment hit her incredibly hard, especially coming off a stretch where her confidence had been building. This is a woman who has already won multiple majors, who has already proven herself as one of the greatest talents of her generation, and she was still gutted by this loss in a way that shows just how much pressure still sits on her shoulders every single time she steps on a big stage. Because that's the thing about being labeled the future of a sport from the time you're a teenager. The goalposts never stop moving. Every match becomes a referendum on whether you're still living up to the hype, whether you're still the chosen one, whether you can still deliver on a promise you made, unknowingly, when you were barely old enough to drive. So when you actually zoom out and look at this rivalry as a complete story, what you're really watching is two athletes wrestling with the exact same demon in completely different forms, the crushing weight of elite expectation. Osaka wrestled with it by breaking down publicly, stepping away, prioritizing her mental health even when the world wasn't ready to understand that decision, and then clawing her way back on her own terms. As a mother, rebuilding her career essentially from scratch.
I don't feel sad. It's really weird. Well, it's not weird because I just feel like I did the best that I could. And honestly, it's kind of inspiring for me because it makes me just want to train.
Gauff wrestled with it by never really stepping away at all, by absorbing the pressure and somehow using it as jet fuel to become a two-time major champion before the age of 22, but clearly still carrying real emotional weight every single time a loss threatens that narrative. Neither path was easy. Neither path is finished. And every time these two collide on a tennis court, it seems like the emotional weight of both of their journeys just spills out in front of millions of people, whether they intend for it to or not. Now let's talk about why this particular moment is resonating so hard with people who don't even follow tennis closely, because I think that's honestly the most fascinating part of this whole story. This isn't really about forehands and backhands and unforced errors. This is about watching someone rebuild themselves in public. Naomi Osaka has become this unlikely symbol for an entire generation of people, especially young women, who are trying to figure out how to protect their mental health while still chasing massive, public, high-pressure goals. When she first stepped back from tennis to protect herself, she got absolutely torn apart by parts of the media and by fans who couldn't understand why the world's highest-paid female athlete would ever need a break. But time has vindicated her in a huge way. The conversation around athlete mental health has completely shifted since then, with major sports organizations now building actual support systems for athletes because of the door she kicked open. And now, watching her come back from motherhood, rebuild her ranking, and beat one of the best players in the world while getting emotional about the journey it took to get there, that hits different. That's not just a sports story. That's a redemption arc. And on the flip side, Coco Gauff represents something equally powerful. The idea that you can handle enormous pressure at an unbelievably young age and still come out the other side, not just intact, but thriving. There's a version of this story where the 15-year-old who cried on Arthur Ashe Stadium in 2019 gets swallowed up by the hype, gets crushed by comparisons to legends, gets burned out before she turns 20. That happens constantly in professional sports. Instead, Gauff channeled all of it into becoming one of the most complete, most mentally tough competitors on the entire tour. Multiple Grand Slam titles. Genuine global stardom. A maturity level that seems to defy her age every time she sits down for a press conference. So even in this loss, even crying in front of her team after getting beaten by Osaka, What we're really watching is a champion who still cares enough, who still has enough hunger to be devastated by a loss instead of shrugging it off. That's not weakness. That's exactly what separates the good players from the legendary ones. Let's talk a little bit more about what's been happening around both of these athletes lately, because the story doesn't stop at just this one match. There's a whole storyline building here that fans are buzzing about. Osaka's comeback has been one of the most closely watched narratives in the sport over the past couple of seasons. There's also something worth mentioning here about the broader cultural moment both of these athletes are operating in. Women's tennis right now is arguably more compelling, more emotionally transparent of athletes rarely were. Post-match interviews used to be scripted, safe, almost robotic. Now you have superstar athletes crying on camera, admitting their insecurities, talking openly about therapy, motherhood, pressure, and mental health, and audiences are responding to that authenticity in a massive way. Ratings for their matchups spike. Clips go viral within minutes. Commentary sections fill up with people who don't even normally watch tennis, all captivated by the sheer emotional honesty of these moments. Naomi Osaka crying while talking about Coco Gauff isn't just a tennis headline. It's become a cultural moment, the kind of clip that gets shared across platforms by people who couldn't tell you the score of the match, but absolutely understand what it feels like to fight your way back from a place where you didn't know if you'd ever get another shot. So where does this leave the rivalry going forward? Well, if history has taught us anything about these two, it's that we haven't seen the last chapter of this story. Osaka has made it clear she's not just here to make up the numbers. She's chasing more Grand Slam glory, and every match against a player like Gauff is both a measuring stick and a statement. Gauff, for her part, has too much talent, too much drive, and too much history of bouncing back from setbacks to let one emotional loss define her season. Expect these two to keep colliding on the biggest stages tennis has to offer, and expect every single one of those matches to carry this same emotional weight, this same undercurrent of mutual respect and shared history that started with a hug at a net back in 2019 and somehow keeps getting more powerful with every passing year. At the end of the day, what makes this story so unforgettable isn't the final score, and it isn't even really about who's currently ranked higher or who's chasing more titles. It's about watching two human beings navigate insanely public pressure with grace, humanity, and honesty, even when it means breaking down in tears in front of the entire world. It's about a torch that got passed years ago in the most emotional way possible, and how that torch keeps flickering back and forth between two women who clearly respect the hell out of each other, even in the heat of intense competition. Naomi Osaka's tears weren't a sign of weakness. They were a sign of just how far she's come, how much she's fought through, and how much this specific rivalry, with this specific young woman across the net, means to her journey. And Coco Gauff's tears, even with multiple Grand Slam titles already to her name. This is the kind of storyline that reminds us why we fall in love with sports in the first place. It's not just about who wins. It's about the human beings behind the competition, carrying all their struggles, their comebacks, their fears, and their triumphs onto a court in front of the entire world, with absolutely nowhere to hide. Naomi Osaka and Coco Gauff have given us one of the most emotionally rich rivalries in modern sports. And if this latest chapter is any indication, we are nowhere close to seeing how this story ends. And that's exactly why we wanted to break this whole thing down for you today here on Chatterbox. Because moments like this deserve more than just a quick headline scroll. They deserve context, they deserve the full story, and they deserve a space where we can really sit with what makes them so powerful. If this video gave you chills, if it made you tear up a little bit yourself, or if you're just as invested in this rivalry as we are, do us a huge favor and smash that like button. Drop a comment telling us who you think comes out on top the next time these two meet. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss a story like this one again. We've got so much more entertainment, sports drama, and viral moments breaking down every single week right here on the channel. Thank you so much for watching, Chatterbox fam. We'll see you in the next one.